Hello and welcome to Story X Story, the podcast by Mayamada that dives deep into stories across pop culture, plus gives you advice on creating your own. It is episode 208, and I'm your co-host, Nigel.
I am Tazziii, content creator and co-host.
And as always, we are here bringing you interesting discussions with diverse voices. And to help us out today, as we collect up our Lego pieces and start playing with them in DC-themed ways, is content creator Chochy. Chochy, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me. Yes, going good. I'm excited to talk about Lego. I'm a little obsessed with Lego, so
Yeah, who isn't obsessed with Lego? Literally, who isn't? Because I feel they got everyone like them, Nintendo, Coca-Cola, McDonald's. I don't know. They're
yeah,
like,
they've got a Game Boy one coming out soon. I'm
One
excited.
Piece.
oh yeah,
Wait, there's One Piece Lego?
There's One Piece Lego.
Oh, I need that.
recently. So there you go. So they got everyone, and yeah, we're here talking about it. Yeah, we're going to get into this. So Chucky, you were first time on the podcast, but you have joined us at Comic-Con for what we thought was going to be a live recording of a video game adaptation chat, but it turned out they weren't recording, so no one will know, but we know. So we were there, Jade Shepherd and Miss Bubbles as well, last Comic-Con. But this is your debut on the main podcast. So yeah, welcome and thanks for joining. For people listening, you can subscribe to Story X Story wherever you get your podcast from. That includes Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also send us your feedback and questions in a variety of ways. You can send us a voice message on our Spotify for Podcasters page. You can email us, studio77@mymatter.com. Or you can reach us on social media. We are at MyMatter on. I'm just still calling it Twitter. You know what's funny? Like everywhere I see X, formerly known as Twitter or X/Twitter. And if you have to do that, if you always have to do that, it's just Twitter. So yeah, MyMatter on Twitter, MyMatter TV on Instagram and TikTok, MyMatter.com on Blue Sky, or Life of a W Gamer on Instagram and TikTok, and Tazziii on everything else, including Tazziii.bsky.social on Blue Sky. We have a new website in the works, but you can still go to myamatter.com, see what we're about. If you don't know all the different parts of the brand, it's nicely summarized on that holding page, if I do say so myself. You can also join the Studio 77 Discord, join the MyMatter community as we also make changes there in 2025. So speaking of the MyMatter universe, before we get into today's story discussions, let's update you with the latest on the myriad of things that we're working on. The first thing is actually something we've finished, and that is the latest comic, Origins Against All Odds, which is finally done and in print and available digitally as well. But this is, it's now done, available for purchase. You can get it, you can touch it, you can read it. The story's out. I can't make any more changes to it, so I will not be reading it ever again, because that's the way I make the stories. But so this is the first story in the Origins line in the My Matter universe. So it sees real life characters from the core team turned into anthropomorphic characters in the My Matter universe, and I'm working on creating a short story about how each character got to the My Matter universe. So it's very meta. This first one features Tazziii, which is a reflective, hope-filled manga about pursuing your creative career goals in the face of resistance and doubters from the world around you. So Tazzii's read it. Other people have read it. We are sending out Kickstarter rewards as well. So thank you again to everyone who made it possible by backing that Kickstarter last year. Some people back the campaign and they'll be getting sent books. Other people can find us at different events over the year. We've got a couple coming up. So we will be at Yo Comics. So I'll be there with Brooke, who was one of the key people working narratively on the story. So we will be at Yo Comics, which is a comic fair for kids. So this is in South London, and not like, I don't know, Bermondsey, South London, like beyond the underground South London, like deep South London, for those that know. We'll be there once I figure out where it is, showcasing the manga. We'll also be running a short Yonkoma workshop for young creators, just showing sort of basics of putting together sort of panels for one-page stories. So that should be cool. And then we'll be at the TNB XPO, which is a lot of letters, but is essentially a film-focused convention for diverse creators. I'll be there on the 27th talking video games. You can hear more about the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign, see past years' participants in the photos, and then, I'll be talking video game storytelling as well. And then we'll keep people updated on other places where you can find us and manga. You can also find us at the Do I Look Like a Gamer campaign events that will be taking place over the year. So this is the campaign promoting inclusion and diversity in the video games industry. Chochy was one of the 40 from last year. So you can check out the video and the photos there. And then we've got a new batch. So we're currently working on a new batch of 40 players and makers, as we also put in place the events that will be taking, that you can take part in over the year. So the whole idea is showcasing that representation, getting people involved in the industry and wider culture. And we're looking forward to putting that together for a 4th year. So since 2022, we've been running this. We're also, since 2020, doing stuff on Twitch, or at least me anyway, with the Studio 77 activities that we do. So we use it as our digital platform, hosting different shows with creative professionals, and we play games as well. So we've got our show where Tazziii and I go over like different updates in the My Matter universe, talk video games, stuff like that. That's just the Studio 77 report. We have casual conversations where each month I speak to a different comic creator. And then we have games night where we just play games with the community as well. And we play a different game, and we're working on the ones for this month, March, and then future months as well. So if you follow us on Twitch, you'll get the notifications, and also social media, you'll get a heads up when things are happening. And like I touched on, we have a work experience program, work experience / training program called Showrunners. So if you're an aspiring creative professional or you know one, you can check out our program. We're creating opportunities for young people aged 16 and up to work with our team across comic production, events, and content creation. And we've got a special program that's running in Waltham Forest, and we've got 7 people being trained and then working on our events. So we're working in collaboration with the council there. So this should be interesting. Got a good bunch of people that we met today as of recording, and then we will put them through their paces in the coming months. So email us, showrunners@mymatter.com, to find out more about that. Now you're all caught up with the My Matter universe, so let's talk about some of the stories that we've been enjoying this week.
This is the point where we have a spoiler-free discussion about what stories people have been reading, watching, or playing, and we'll start with our guest. So, Chochy, do you want to let us know what's been on your list?
So I've kind of been like bouncing around like new stuff and older stuff. Like I think the biggest thing that I've been watching recently was I got to go watch Mickey 17, the new film with Robert Pattinson. He is really working to break out of that Twilight era.
Doing everything you can.
Yeah, that was really fun. And then I've also been watching the Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man show that they had on Netflix recently. Not Netflix, Disney Plus. And I've finally been watching the final season of Superman and Lois, because while I know a lot of people kind of don't really think that the CW shows were ever very good for like the Arrowverse stuff. Honestly, I think I'm a bit of a sucker for them, and I really enjoyed them, but I've been waiting for them to finally release that season in the UK, and they finally have, so I've been watching through that.
I did watch a lot of The Flash, which I would say I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say like the best of TV, but it's just a nice, comfortable.
It was dumb
watch.
fun, I feel like, but it definitely kind of it goes downhill.
Okay, I think I missed the last season.
Oh yeah, that's fair. It feels like, I think its best season was probably about like season 2 or something, and there's definitely a point where you start being like, why is this still going?
Yeah, I felt that. Oh, and also to make a callback that only me and Chochy know, because we were there before recording, that the dad in The Flash was one of the actors on Law and Order. So that will
Oh.
only mean something to us. But yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, you had to be there. You had to be there.
Cool. Yeah, talking of super, I've definitely been on a super trend right now. So I watched Supercell finally. I did pretty much binge the whole season basically in one day. In all fairness, I had a really early day. I didn't want to go to bed too early. But yeah, so I watched Supercell. It's so good. I'm so upset that I've slept on it for so long.
I have.
Oh,
But
you
have you
need
not
to
seen it?
rectify that
Yeah.
immediately.
Okay. I'm gonna get on
Yeah,
that.
it's
Yeah.
really good, and like it's one of the Netflix shows we're actually getting a second season on. So I feel like you're allowed to get attached to it now.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think Ratman did a good job on this. I think there's one thing that really bugs me is that it has a lot of like just typical superhero tropes that I'm like, you could have just not done them. You could have just done anything else and it would be great. But yeah, it's really cool. It's really I love seeing things in Southeast London because it's just it's such a vibe. And it's so great seeing like a superhero thing. And it's like just really clever how it's done. And I did like have to like Google a load of stuff about sickle cell because I wanted to know like how much it influenced like the powers and stuff, or like some of the things that happens with the powers, which is really really cool. Yeah, but I want to talk about it, but I'm like, I can't spoil it. So go watch it. I was actually in it as well. I mean, you don't see me in it, but I did work on it. So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, and I'd had like no idea like what the storyline for it was when I worked on it.
You just came and did your bit, and like,
Yeah, it was cool because okay, so two of the scenes that I worked on just weren't in it at all, but one of them that I worked on was, and it was like really cool seeing how the shot came together, like from seeing it behind the scenes and then seeing it because you're like, oh, I wonder how that's gonna look. I love it when that happens, and it's gorgeous. Yeah, no, it looks great. It feels great. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to go back and rewatch that because I very much as well like I binged it right when it came out. And I was like, this
Yeah.
is really good. This is really fun. And then just like honestly kind of forgot about it. Not because it's forgettable, but just I think there's so much content right now. It's kind of hard to keep something in your mind too long.
Yeah. I kind of wish I'd watched an episode a week or a couple of episodes a week. So I find that's a better way to absorb something like this, where it has lots of like connecting bits so that you can ponder it and like think about how that connects and what's going to happen next. But
definitely, like I wish I did that more. I think like because actually the one show I forgot to mention that I've been watching recently that did release like that was the show called School Spirits, and that was like very much a show that like chucked on kind of being like, oh, it might be good, it might not. Binged through the entire first season because it was already out, and then caught up with where the show was, and it was releasing weekly. And the mysteries in that show, they do such a good job of having like a twist at the end of an episode that feels actually justified in the plot. Like it's not just there to have a twist. And I'd just be thinking about it all week, like trying to work out what is coming up and what's going to happen. And I love when shows do that. It just like it sticks with you so much more.
yeah, there's some shows that you really do just have to watch week by week. They're like so much better viewing experience week by week. I feel like Superstore would have been one of those. But alas, I watched it basically all in one day. It was still great. Yeah, it's cool. And then I finished watching Superstore, so continuing the super theme, which is a like sitcom thing based in a like American supermarket. And it's just my favorite thing about the show is these unhinged cuts, like transition cuts that are just shots of like, I don't know, like a kid eating all the sweets on a shelf and then putting the wrappers back or something. Like they just have these unhinged, like fly on the wall cuts of the supermarket. Like it's just people doing these unhinged things.
Yeah, I watched that show recently as well, and like I'm trying to think of specific ones, but I remember some of those just completely like taking me out of it. Like I had to pause and be like, hold up, what?
I want just to watch like a clip of those, like, because they really make that show. I think it's one that just reminds me that like people are
weird.
People are weird, yeah. There are some unhinged characters in that show, but like also like people are just people. Like everyone has a certain amount of information about the world and things have influenced them about the world, and everyone's just trying to do their best based on the tools they've been given from the start of their life. I feel like that's a super positive takeaway from it. I'm sure that's not what the writers were trying to do, but yeah, I quite like it for that. It's a funny one though. It's just a very silly. There are some seriously unhinged characters, and then like just all the different like romance and like the like store gossip. Oh my god, the way that things spread and change so quickly. It's like, yeah, I've been in those. It's just funny. And then I've been watching Sakamoto Days. I think I've watched up to episode 10 and then I was waiting for the next episode to come out, which I think is the last episode of the season, episode 11. So I need to watch that, but it's really good. I really like it.
Glad to hear that, because the manga's really good.
I might have to put it on my manga read list, because it's definitely a story I could follow again. I mean, it's just the vibe. He's so funny. It's the fact that he's just like this super chill, quiet guy as well, and then he's just still got it.
Yeah, not missed a step.
Yeah, and the wife has got to be one of my favorites. Yeah, I mean, I just go watch it. I don't want to say anything about it. You just got to go watch it. And then I don't know if I said this before, so I'm just going to put it in here because I feel like I haven't actually spoke about all the isekais I watched for a while. And so I watched My Next Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom. So I've watched the 2 seasons that are out of that, and I like it. Oh
wait, that's all one title. Sorry,
yes,
just realizing I thought there was a comma in there. That is a colon, not a comma. Cool,
yes,
cool.
And it's basically about a girl that gets reborn into an autumn game world as the villainess.
Oh.
And then so she's like trying to avoid basically her doom. Because in the game, it doesn't matter what option you choose in the game, the villainess always ends up with a bad ending. But it's very, very sweet and lovely. And she's just like the ditziest girl with the biggest heart. So it's just so wholesome. And she's completely clueless about how anyone feels about her. So I feel like I can relate to that. Yeah, and that is my list. I feel like the last one had a long enough name to just be a very long list. So Nigel, what are your recent stories?
Yeah, I got a mix. I got a bit of a Marvel sandwich where Marvel is the bread, but one piece of bread is definitely better than the other. Let me start with the bad piece of bread. Well, not bad actually. It's not bad. But I have watched Captain America: Brave New World, and yeah, it's just a bit. Yeah, it's not bad, but it's not great either. So this is the 4th Captain America, and it's the first one with Anthony Mackie, previously Falcon, as Captain America, taking over that mantle after Steve Rogers. Yeah, I don't know. You know what? It just made me think that, because I know Marvel have come into some criticism over sort of phase 4 and whatever phase we're in now, sort of post Endgame, and I still feel like there's enough creative talent there, but also they also have to raise the level of what they're doing. They can't just do this. I mean, they can, because I'm sure enough people will go and see it, but in terms of creatively, they can't just do the same thing. And this feels like a lot of the same things that we've seen in the initial phases. And then I had a sort of personal issue with some of the, just like the story, the narrative. It felt, I don't know what if anything particularly happened with editing or stuff like that. Just felt quite pieced together, not necessarily a strong theme running throughout, and it just felt like stuff's happening, and the dialogue, the narrative didn't pull the narrative together. There was not a lot of like subtext. Everything was very sort of character going to say exactly what I feel, or what's on my mind. It's entertaining, but just not. Yeah, I feel could be done better. So there you go. My lukewarm review of Captain America.
I guess like my own curiosity with that, like, would you say it feels like the film justifies its own existence? Because like I think from my perspective, my problem with Marvel for a while has been it feels like every project is just there to be like a puzzle piece to get to the next end game. Like Multiverse of Madness especially felt like we're just putting the pieces in place. Like don't mind us. We're just setting up for later, which doesn't feel like a fun film to watch.
No, and there was and I don't mind that to a certain extent, because obviously phases 1 to Endgame is what they did, to like they were all pieces, and then it came together so well. But then you could do that too much where you forget you also have to tell a decent story. I'd say in that case, I'd say no, it doesn't. This could have been a show. I mean, I guess it was a show, but that's not to say that there weren't things in there that could have made a great film, or at least a very good film. But we just didn't explore it any further than, oh, he's a new Captain America now, stay tuned. So yeah, that's what I feel.
Bummer.
Yeah, and like I say, it's not bad. There are definitely worse Marvel films, but just we've seen where we are. I feel just need to step up. So hopefully the next ones will do that.
Yeah, better or worse than Love and Thunder then?
Oh, I mean, Love and Thunder was unfinished homework, so
no, that's like my baseline, because it's like there's like The Dark World, which was just forgettable, but I think Love and Thunder to me feels like the most like offensively bad film they've made.
Yeah, I mean, listen to that episode we did. Yeah, offensive is the right word. It's exactly. I think I literally said that.
Surely nothing gets worse.
Oh, don't say that. They'll prove us wrong.
I mean, I'll be impressed
if they actually, you'd have to try. Yeah.
To any Marvel writers listening, this is not a challenge. Please.
Yeah, skip this bit. Wait to the end of my list, and then you to take notes. All right, so let's go into the non-Marvel meat. So I finished Gangs of London. So not much to say other than I finished it. Mentioned it in earlier episodes. Fantastic show, but you need to brace yourself for the things you're going to see in the show. I'm usually I like to think I have a sort of strong disposition when watching shows, but this one is like, I need to watch that show, digest what I've just seen before moving to the next one. But great show.
So that's one I should definitely avoid.
If it touched me like it did,
I'll have to watch like the Lego movie
version.
Sandwich it.
But no, fantastic show. I need to watch I think there's a third season coming, but I just need to brace myself. I've been reading a book, trying to improve my reading habit. I used to read a lot when I was younger, like physical books, and then have fallen off when it comes to fiction specifically. But reading Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, and quite early, but it's a story about what they call an artificial friend, which I've just taken as AI robot. But early on, at least, in the first 50 pages that I'm reading, it's about this artificial friend who's making observations from the window of this store, wanting to be bought by a human. So it seems to be saying a lot about just, people, relationships, and how we interact with the world and each other. So it's quite an interesting read so far. It's quite like simple language, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but it feels quite readable, because I'm used to reading like fantasy novels with long sprawling language, but it just feels like quite simple. So I'll report back when I've made progress there. And final one on my list, and the good piece of bread, the not out of date bread in the Marvel sandwich, is Daredevil Born Again. Watching the new series, and First thing I would say is watching it, just relief, like genuine relief that at least in my opinion, in the first 3 episodes, they being Disney have not messed this up. I don't usually have expectations. I know Tazziii and I have spoken about, don't usually, just take things as they come. This is the one show where I have expectations because the Netflix series overall was great. Season 1 was great. Season 2, it was okay. It worked. Not as good. Season 3, and is what we were talking beforehand. So, Chochy, is for you. Season 3, for my money, is the best Marvel series. Full stop. By a distance, like by a comfortable distance.
That is an interesting statement. I'm gonna have to see because we were talking about it before. Like I only ever got to like partway through season 2, and I honestly just kind of just lost interest. So
Yeah,
I
I
might
can
have
see
to
that.
actually stick
Yeah,
with it
I
now
would
and
say
see
season
where it
2 is
goes.
well worth getting through to get to season 3. It's just, just comfortably. It's like you remember when Usain Bolt was at the top of his game and he'd run races and it'd be like him and then a gap and then the rest. That's how I feel about Daredevil season 3. Just I watched that the edge of my seat from beginning to end. It's fantastic. The actor that plays Kingpin,
Vincent D'Onofrio, right?
that's it. Yeah. So Vincent D'Onofrio is just fantastic. Like his facial features, you could feel him just thinking about every word he's saying. Not from I'm thinking about the acting, but just from a character. You can feel the character, just emotions and everything. Fantastic. So yeah, it's a great show. And I was just worried that Disney would mess it up and I don't know, sand off the edges because it is a adult show, like it's an 18 plus, and not just because of the violence, but the themes is quite dark themes in there. And I was just worried that they'd sand those off to fit it in. But based on the first 3 seasons, it looked good, and I'm just relieved and really enjoying what they're putting out so far. So happy, happy because there were definitely expectations there. So yeah, that's what I have been enjoying for the most part, at least. Those are our stories for the week. Now let's get to the main story discussion. Today, we're going to talk about the Lego Batman movie, the 2017 superhero animated film based on characters from DC Comics and the Lego Batman toy line. It was directed by Chris McKay in his feature directorial debut from a screenplay that is based on Seth Graham Smith's story. The film is the first spin-off of the Lego movie franchise and the second installment overall. It features Will Arnett reprising his role as Batman from the Lego movie alongside Zach Galifianakis, Michael Cera, Rosario Dawson, and Ralph Fiennes. So, spoiler alert, we are now in the spoiler section of the podcast. We're going to get into all the details. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a short film, it's an hour and a half. And come back to us. I will do a recap of the story, but before we do that, let's first get everyone's quick takes and general impressions of this story. So, Chochy, we'll start with you. What did you think about this story?
I mean, honestly, like my whole take of this film is I honestly think it is the best Batman like depiction of Bruce Wayne that we've ever had. And I know that might be like a hot take because we've had a lot of versions of Batman at this point. But like I would argue that like this film is not a Batman film, it's a Bruce Wayne film. Like so much of it is kind of a dissection of why Bruce leans on Batman as like the cool guy to kind of cover up his own emotional problems and him like learning to work through that. And I think that's honestly why I love the film so much, because like especially for it being the one that's like the least dark and the most kid-like, they do such a good job of kind of using that to actually make fun of like how silly Batman as an idea is. And I've always found Batman like, I mean, I'm more of a like Spider-Man like Marvel fan anyway, but I always found like Batman to me frustrates me because I'm like, but he's just like a man running around in pajamas rather than like doing anything. He owns this like huge company and yet he's like bouncing around putting people in the exact same asylum they'll break out of again. Like, but I think this film kind of, to me, it fixed Batman. Honestly, it kind of, I can look at this film and go, this is why he's running around in the pajamas. It's not because he doesn't realize that like they'll break out. It's because he wants them to break out, because then he gets to go around in his cool car and talk about his 9-pack and seem real cool about it.
That's that is a hot take, but I see where you're coming from. Tazziii, what about yourself? What do you think about this story?
You mean this rom-com? I really enjoyed it. I love Batman films. I love the Lego Movie. I love rom-coms. So this is kind of like the mashup of those three together. I think this film is so funny, and I feel like it's such like a kids film that isn't a kids film, because it's so like,
Yeah, I get that.
I feel like it works better for adults. I don't know. I didn't watch it as a kid because I wasn't a kid when it came out, but I can't imagine watching this as a kid and really getting anything other than cool Lego from it, if that makes sense. I feel like the actual story and plot points are something that just adults are gonna get.
I think I must have been like just like teenager when it came out. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of the thing of all the Lego movies. Like, they're not really kids' films. They are like these more complicated films with a kid like filter on top. Because even like the original Lego movie, that's not really like, there's the whole story with Emmett, but I feel like really that film's about like the dad and his relationship with his kid. Like,
But I feel like the Lego Movie, as a kid, I would have got the story from it. Like, I would have got a message and a lesson. Because even Emmett's story is like, believe in yourself, and like, it doesn't matter if you seem like the uninteresting, no talent one. Believe in yourself, and you'll be there. But with this, there's like, other than the basic hero saves the day. I just don't see myself getting any deeper meaning as a kid.
We're gonna have to ask some kids.
Yeah. I feel like it's all adult deep, because even the family thing, I feel like it wouldn't actually hit as a kid like that. I don't
know.
It.
You say that though, but I have a very distinct memory of like being in the cinema watching this, and like the bit where he's like sadly microwaving his lobster thermidor, and then like watching a film and stuff. Like, I feel like that sticks with me because it is like, that to me said everything about like his lack of family and like the way that he's always talking to like the picture of his parents, because he just like cannot cope with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's a very good film, and as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, this is an aggressively good film. And I don't know why that combination of words came to mind, but I just felt it's short, so that always helps. But short could be a problem because it can not leave you with enough space, but it just does everything it needs to do. It's funny, but not too funny. So like, it just gets that balance right for me. And it has like very clear themes, which obviously we'll get into and like dig around and then figure that out. There's also something about Batman, Chochy, you've reminded me. I'll see if I can find it before the end, but you made a very good point that I've heard put elsewhere. So I'll see if I can find that thing. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm surprised how good these Lego films are. Again, I had not watched it until a few days ago as we prepared for the podcast, and yeah, they're good films, good films that work on different levels. So excited to get into this particular one and some of these themes as well. But yeah, I'll do this recap and then we'll dive into it. So this is a story that takes us to Gotham City, where Batman has just stopped the Joker again. But also hurts his feelings by telling him their relationship is not special to him, which leads the Joker to seek payback. The next day, Batman's alter ego, Bruce Wayne, spoiler alert, attends the city's gala celebrating the retirement of Police Commissioner Gordon and the rise of his daughter Barbara to replace him. While Bruce is smitten with Barbara, he unwittingly agrees to adopt the orphan Dick Grayson. Wayne is, however, upset by Barbara's plans to restructure the police without Batman. The Joker crashes the party with his villain team, only to immediately surrender himself and most of the villains to the police. With so many villains locked up, Batman is left sad as Gotham no longer requires his services. But suspecting that the Joker is up to something, Batman plans to steal Superman's projector, which can banish anyone to the Phantom Zone, which houses some of the most dangerous criminals as long as they are from the Lego/Warner Brothers multiverse. But Alfred intervenes and tells him to take care of his son Dick. Batman convinces Dick to help in his scheme, and Batman and Robin steal the projector, break into Arkham Asylum, and send the Joker to the Phantom Zone, which forces Barbara to arrest them because that kind of thing is illegal. But Harley Quinn steals back the projector and frees Joker, allowing him to return to Gotham with all the villains recruited from the Phantom Zone, including Sauron, who informs the Joker that Batman is Bruce Wayne's roommate. And realizing that Gotham does need Batman after all, Barbara releases Batman and Robin and teams up with them to stop the new threat. Despite some success, Batman sends them all away to face the Joker alone, fearing he'll lose them like he did his parents. So believing that Batman is incapable of changing, the Joker sends him to the Phantom Zone before stealing the Batcave's stash of bombs in order to destroy Gotham. Meanwhile, the Phantom Zone's gatekeeper shows Batman how he has mistreated others, and he finally accepts his greatest fear, being part of a family. Batman makes a deal to temporarily return to Gotham to retrieve the escaped prisoners, arriving in time to save his teammates and apologize to them. With the help from Joker's former villain team, Batman sends the escaped multiverse villains back to the Phantom Zone. The Joker's bombs still detonate, but Batman convinces Joker to help by telling him he gives him purpose to be the hero he is. They manage to save Gotham by having everyone chain link themselves together to reattach the city, because it's all Lego. Batman reveals to Dick that he is Bruce Wayne, then goes to return to the Phantom Zone to face the consequences of his earlier behavior, but he is prevented from entering as he is a hero after all. Batman then gives the Joker and the rest of the fleeing villains a head start, knowing there will be no match for his newfound team/family/village. The end. So yeah, like I said, this is a good film, and the Lego Movie was a good film. So after the success of the Lego Movie in 2014, Warner Brothers greenlit multiple Lego films, including the Lego Batman movie, and yeah, the rest was history, as they say. And it made some money, so it grossed 175.8 million in the States and Canada, 137 million worldwide. So yeah, 312 million against a budget of 80 million. So that's always like the barometer for, like, you know, is this successful? How much did it cost to make? How much did it make in the cinemas? And I didn't know this, but it was ranked the 23rd best superhero movie of all time. And as of this year, it fell to 30th. So that puts it, you know, on the list, because there've been a lot of these films. But what I'm interested to know, like, I think Chochy mentioned earlier, how do you compare these films to like their live action iterations?
Yeah, like, so as I said, I kind of look at it from the perspective of like, what does this tell us about Batman as a character? Because I think, like, in terms of like action and stuff, it's very hard to compare because they're just such different styles. Like, you get a very different style from this compared to like the Lego films have a very different kind of aesthetic to the live action films. And I mean, even that, like, the Batman has a very different feel to like the Batman trilogy by Christopher Nolan. But I think what they all do is they're all kind of trying to explore Batman as a character and trying to explore what he is. And like, to me, the ones that I always put on a pedestal is this film and the Batman. So I think the Batman's an interesting one in terms of we're seeing him from a perspective of like, he is kind of a horror character in that more than a hero for most of the film.
Yeah.
Like, I love that bit at the beginning where he just kind of appears out of nowhere, and he is really like well-meaning but quite scary in that. And I feel like the film is kind of evaluating like, what kind of a hero does he want to be, whereas in this it's kind of, he's already like become a hero. That's, or at least he thinks he's a hero. He thinks of himself as it, until the whole Phantom Zone thing kind of questions that. But I think what it does give us is a much stronger understanding of like what his actual hopes and fears are as a character. Because I think like Robert Pattinson's one, we don't necessarily get too much more than the idea of vengeance. And that does make sense because Batman as a character normally is consumed with that vengeance. But I think there's something really fun and interesting about getting more of that question of like, so once like he could get that vengeance tomorrow, but like what fundamentally does he actually want?
Yeah.
And I think this question's a lot more like he could get that, but actually at the end of the day he'll still feel empty because what he really wants is people to fill the gap of that family that he's lost, and he's also pretty incapable of doing that.
That's definitely incapable. Yeah, it's interesting to see like such a I guess a deeper examination of like a Batman psyche from a Lego a Lego film. That's wild. But yeah, like I say, is good. And I got this quote from Chris Nashawati of Entertainment Weekly, who gave the film B plus and said that, quote, Lego Batman revs so fast and moves so frenetically that it becomes a little exhausting by the end. It flirts with being too much of a good thing, but rarely has corporate brainwashing been so fun and gone down with such a delightful aftertaste. And yeah, I felt this when we did the episode on the Lego movie, because this manages to strike the balance between that corporate brainwashing and artistic merit, because it is there to sell a product. I mean, I guess all films have that commercial aspect, but this even more so because there's literally Lego. That's what they do. And I leave both films going, that was way better than it needed to be, and actually just good. How are they doing that? Actually, first, do you even agree with that? They've got that balance right, and if so, how are they doing that?
I think like I definitely agree they do it really well, because I mean like I do a lot of writing as well. I'm like at the end of the day like a script writer, and one of the things that I always find you have to really look at is like how do you like actually just tell a story. And then like when you're doing the comedy stuff, you've got to find that amount of like, how funny do I want this to be? And like for a comedy, this film does a really good job of having the slower moments, which like they're still like they make you chuckle a bit, but it's giving time to like do something else. I mean, I already mentioned like the microwave scene. Like I think that scene where he's like watching a like romance movie in this like a home theater is one of my favorite scenes for that, because on one hand you have like the silly bit of like him finding it's on the wrong HDMI channel and having to go through all of them, and it takes him quite a while and it's just silent. But even in that being kind of a silly, goofy little moment, it's also just like completely quiet. Like there isn't actually like anything being thrown at you. And so you really are just getting the sense of like he is just this lonely man, and like this is just the tedium of his life. So it kind of works on both levels, and I think they do a really good job of like making, there's the big bombastic funny comedy scenes, but then there are also these moments where you just have him and it's quiet and you're just seeing like how he operates on his own, which like is also, in terms of writing, one of the best things you can do with a character is show us how they operate without anyone else there anyway.
Tazzy, what do you think about that balance?
I think because what they do, the like more commercial selling Lego side, is the cool animation and like the putting Lego together, because there is a lot of like building that happens, I guess. And then sort of like you see all like the bat gadgets sort of like transform, and then just I feel like when I was watching it, it was like I was like, I really want to build a Lego set right now.
There you go, it's working.
But also the story is like very, very deep. It's very like self-reflective as well. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just for me because I work on my own most of the time from home.
No, I felt that too.
Yeah, I've often someone to just like do things by myself, but it's got such, I don't know how they do it, to be honest. I feel like I think it's just because the nature of Lego is that you can build anything. So
even a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like to some degree it's almost like a foundation. Like I wouldn't say I felt like the Lego was like brainwashing so much as it was like it's just a useful mechanic for the film.
And I think if you think about like Lego and the generations that have like enjoyed Lego. There's so many adults now, and I feel like especially now more than ever, like there's literally Lego sets built for adults, like more aimed towards an adult audience. It's kind of like that connection, like the people that love Lego. I mean, obviously kids still love Lego, but there's a massive generation of people that are like reliving their childhood or like reconnecting with their inner child by buying Lego because they can afford the really expensive Lego sets now.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, I've been waiting for this.
Don't call me out like this. One of the first things I bought when I graduated uni was like one of the Lego train sets that I've wanted since I was about 10.
There you go. So it's like, yeah, I think it's that connection as well. And I imagine the people making the films like played with Lego when they were a kid, and now they're old enough to buy the expensive Lego. So I imagine like people working on it have that personal connection with it, and have like, I feel like a lot of people have like Lego's been a useful device for healing their inner child anyway. And this is a kind of a film about healing.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne's inner child after parents being brutally murdered and all that.
Yeah, it's just weird. Yeah, again, weird to see like, because it is quite a silly satirical take on the Batman image and brand almost, but from a kids film, that's just wild. I do love how like animation, and often animation aimed at younger audiences, can do that. Can kind of straddle that line. And in terms of the story, I feel they've respected this story, because you could, again, there is a very big commercial aspect to this. They could have just, we're just here to sell Lego, so let's put some flashing images on the screen and all go home. But I feel they've respected storytelling. They've told a story. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean they've told the best story ever and they should win an Oscar. It's still subjective. People can say, I'm not a fan of the story. But in terms of like the building blocks of storytelling, I feel it's all there. So one of the things that stood out to me immediately was this idea of like want versus need and story, and for your characters, particularly the protagonist, where you'll find like a protagonist will often start the story and get to a point very early on, I don't know, 20 within 20 minutes. So where they want something, and that's what they, on the surface, like sometimes they'll literally say it. I want, Luffy, king. I'm going to be king of the pirates. That's the most, certainly the most, probably the quickest that a character has said what they want in a story. But then as the story progresses, you find there's actually another level, which is the need, and it's what the character, again, often the protagonist, needs to resolve in order to achieve what they want, whether they state it out loud or not. And that's interesting, and that's the story. So in this case, we get Batman, Bruce Wayne, who at least says he wants to be alone. He wants to be the guy that saved the city and all that. But what he needs is to, I guess, get over that pain of losing people and or not wanting to lose people again, like he lost his parents, and that's what he has to resolve to get what he really wants, which is just to be in family and let people in close. And and he's presented as this like this childlike figure. You even have like Alfred reading that parenting book, how to control your kid, or whatever the title was. Like, what did you make of this portrayal of Batman, especially as we've seen him often in live action, so serious and humorless, at least intentionally humorless? Like, what did you make of this kind of take on Batman? It's kind of weird.
I don't know if it is weird though.
Is it? It's not weird?
No, I feel like, because sometimes when I'm just watching like regular Batman, I'm like, God, Batman is such a
that's
baby.
Weird. Yeah, that's fair point. That's weird. Yeah,
like I don't think it is. Like, he is like the kind of moody emo kid of the superheroes, isn't he? Like,
yeah.
His whole thing is that he never grew up. It's the whole thing is like he never got past that point of trauma. Like, that's where the darkness is and the bats and everything, right? And then and so there's this like theory that you get stuck in the mental age mental and emotional maturity of like your most traumatic event, and that's what you'll always regress to when you're in like a time of stress, and that's what he does. Bruce
like
Wayne
full
for
on.
you.
Yeah.
His character doesn't grow up. He's stuck in this sadness in general, like, and even like the Bruce Wayne side of stuff, like partying, like just no relationships, just like always with like lots of women on his arm type thing. And I feel like it's not weird because it's kind of just a commentary on Batman.
On Batman, yeah. He's quite a takedown actually of his character.
It's like just the ultimate diss track. If someone was writing a diss track, these are the things that they would say. Like, so it's not weird. It just makes sense. It automatically makes sense. And like, yeah, I feel like there's always that kind of relationship between them that is like that anyway. It just, in this film, it just like, it just like highlights it. It's like, I feel like Alfred is always babysitting.
He's
babysitting Batman. And this was just like they took it to the extreme.
It's
so
like,
I don't think it felt weird. Sorry.
Yeah, like I don't know if you guys have ever seen Gotham, but obviously like in that, like Alfred is literally parenting Bruce. And I think honestly, like watching Gotham and then watching the Batman, which I ended up watching like in that order because me and my housemates were watching it just before that came out. It does honestly feel like the same characters. Like, it doesn't feel like
you're saying it. Yeah.
Robert Pattinson's Batman is just
he's a kid.
Bruce in pajamas running around having a tantrum at the world rather than dealing with his problems. It just feels like this film makes it a lot more obvious. This film is like very much, rather than trying to act like his tantrums are cool, it's going, no, actually they're just tantrums.
You need to sort that out. Fair. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I feel the film does a good job of that because it starts like there's an epic opening like sequence of
a good opening.
Yeah. I was because I was watching and I think as I started watching I might have been like finishing off an email or something. I was like, let me just do it quickly and okay, is the opening, you know, what are they going to show in the opening? And then I'm just like, hold on a second, what? Am I watching the Christopher Nolan like version? Did I put on the wrong thing? This is like a full-on kind of epic thing with jokes. But then it's contrasted with, like, once he defeats Joker and as I think, Chochy, you mentioned, as he goes like home to the Batcave and he's just alone. He's just like, there's nothing there, like beneath the surface. And then there's a few sequences where it makes remark of it, but I think he's talking with a reporter once all the villains have been locked away. Actually, it's a bit further on maybe, and then the reporter was like, we don't need a vigilante crime fighter now, there's no more crime, you could spend some quality time with your family. That's such a great line because it's again like subtext, like you don't have one, and he knows it and he's going back to that quiet sadness, and then that's the need. So now we get into like the storytelling. Okay, this guy needs to change because he's obviously not happy with his life.
No, there's so many good moments in that opening that I think of with that, where it's just like, even because I know they play the song "One Is the Loneliest Number" at that point as well, like when he's walking home, and like it's the sort of thing where any other Batman movie would have the exact same scene where he's like dramatically walking home. The only difference is that song's playing.
Yeah, there's like a whole different tone to the actions.
I think as well. So there's two things that came to mind as you were talking. So one, if you want to know how to make a good movie, like just a good sort of recipe for making a movie intro, the Lego Batman movie intro is literally a tutorial. He literally walks you step by step through how to.
He narrates it as well. Like, this is always start with black.
All great movies start with black. So they literally give you the blueprint, but also that this film is such a reflection of like it's such a commentary on just like the sort of like classic rich dude throwing tantrums that affects the rest of society.
Hitting close there. I don't know. That's it's close to the bone. That is.
It's just like the funniest moment where he's like after that scene, after he's walked home, and they do like the dark, gloomy, rainy bit, and all the colors gone except for a few little bits. And then there's one bit where he's like his head, he's sitting at his. He's sitting in the Batcave at the panel, and he at the control panel, and he's like just head down on it, and he's just surrounded by the lobster thermidor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It just cracks me up so much, that one scene. Just
Nice.
Rich guy problems.
But in defense of some rich guys, some of them do have a lot of family, 13 to be exact, I think, and counting. So, anyway, so yeah, no, and so we see that, and what again? The film, like all the blocks are all there, and it does it in the order that they're supposed to be in. So we can see what he needs, even though at that point he doesn't realize it. And then we have the refusal of the call. So it's where like the protagonist, set this quest, whatever the quest means in that story, but they reject it for some reason. They might outright say no, or they might be scared, or in this case, it's just he's stubborn and he hasn't overcome this fear. So once we see like the Joker, and there's some plan and something is going on, but we're not sure, and people are around him trying to help. He's just like, no, I will do this myself. And then it's that struggle, that's the conflict, that internal conflict. So yeah, no, and it sounds like, listening to both of you, that it didn't necessarily change the way you see Batman. And I would say it hasn't necessarily changed the way I see Batman, but it's given, I guess, given an extra layer or clarification for me. And I was trying to find, because I was sent a video a while ago, a friend sent me a video about Batman, but not about Batman. And it was in the context of just like life and as a business and sort of making the choices we make. I was trying to find a video, but it's actually gone off Instagram. But I'll try and paraphrase. But it was essentially what Chochy was saying, that like Batman or Bruce Wayne is a billionaire who has the resources to sort of fix crime or fix the city, like invest in the city so that the people of the city are like safe and have what they need. He could do that. He has the resources to do that. But instead, he chooses to focus on being this Batman, dressing up in this costume and fighting villains. Like that's a choice for him. And I remember my friend sent this to me, and I was like, oh yeah, it's good. It's a good thing. Batman should probably work on that. And then like half an hour later, I messaged him back and go, oh, I stupidly thought this was about Batman. I was like, and I sort of applied it to sort of my situation, thinking how just as people approach life, and sometimes we can do something else, but we choose to focus on insert what your issues are here. And for me, this film is like a reinforcement of that video, of that point that Chuck was making, that like the Batman character, like he's choosing this part. He's choosing to be, at some point you're choosing to be locked in this trauma phase. And yeah, it's just that was not new, but just a new level of sort of perspective on that. And again, similarly for the Batman Joker relationship, because we know that relationship again is parodied here, but again offering and not necessarily new, I need to find a different word than new, but sort of different perspective on that, because Batman's order, Joker's chaos. They need each other. It works. It works. Joker sees it works. Batman at the beginning doesn't. But we see the Joker, who's essentially seeking greater relationship validation, which is just crazy to say out loud. But it's that whole thing about, what do I mean to you? And there's like I think Tazziii, you mentioned like this rom-com. It's like, what do I mean to you? Tell me that this is special. And Batman's just like, nah, it's like, this means nothing to me. Like, what did you think about that whole dynamic between those two?
Yeah, I really loved it, because it's like, I feel like it's commented on a lot, like what would Batman be without the Joker and stuff. And there is a lot of villains in the Batman universe, but the Joker became like the most popularized one. And then like now, like who thinks of like any other villain except the Joker first when you mentioned Batman, except for maybe a few people that have like only ever read comics and never watched any of the movies. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the only group I can think of.
Do you mean you don't think of Condiment King first?
Like, I feel like it hasn't always been like that. Like, I feel like I used to always associate like the Riddler.
Yeah, I
to
think I used to
Batman.
always associate Two-Face.
Yeah, but then the Joker got popular.
He won the branding
And
competition.
and now there is no Joker. There is no Batman without Joker.
Joker, yeah.
Well, it's what I find really funny, because I mentioned Gotham before, and obviously the thing with Gotham is they have like multiple Joker-like characters, but they couldn't get the rights to have the Joker in it. So they have like this guy called Jerome, who is the Joker in everything but name, because they realized they couldn't make a Gotham show without having the Joker, so even without the rights. And then the Batwoman show that the CW did as well, again, they didn't get the rights for the Joker, but they have this character called Alice, who is very much like inspired by the Joker. And then later on, they have someone show up who goes insane because of one of the Joker's old gadgets from when the Joker was active, and then basically just turns into the Joker.
Yeah, he's such a fundamental part of that whole story. Like you need him, and here we as audience need him, but Batman needs him because it serves his purpose. It's like, and he's like the obstacle character, I guess the antagonist, but really the antagonist is internal to Batman in this. But in terms of like the obstacle character, like that serves as the mirror for the main character to recognize their issues. So he does that really well, because through the film, like you see it early on, like, so Batman's like, I work alone, I don't need anyone. But Joker's like, yeah, we've got the villains. Like, he gets all the villains, and then he dumps those ones and gets the Warner Brothers villains. But he's very much willing to work in a team to serve his purposes. Like, he's got no problems with that. Whereas Batman doesn't do that and rejects that over and over. So you see how their dynamic works on the Batman Joker level that we sort of know and come to expect, and then just from a story level, it's like the protagonist is struggling with this thing that the antagonist has no problem with, but has no problem to use it to nefarious ends. So they're a mirror in that sense as well. But yeah, no, I really like that. Yeah, I really like that relationship.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's just weird, this Lego film making deep commentary on Batman mythos. So.
Yeah, but I think it really does do such a good job, because, like, I mean, when you're asking, like, did it change the way you see Batman? I mean, as I said, like, right at the start, it really did to me, like, it didn't change how I see him overall. Like, I still see him as, like, this man with the superhero syndrome and stuff. But I think I understand why a lot more. And the idea of like him and the Joker and like a romantic relationship, it kind of puts it all together, because like the amount of times where like I've been watching one of the other Batman films and you have that face off of Batman and the Joker, and I'm like, why don't you just like arrest him, like sock him in the face right now, this could be over with, and like stop putting him in the asylum, like take him to like an actual prison where he can't get out. And then the moment you realize that it's like, no, he wants him to get out, like this is part of their cat and mouse, and how are they going to go on dates if he's in a maximum security prison? Like,
dates, yeah.
Yeah, it's a date when he tries to like blow up the boat or whatever. That's
yes, it's their thing.
Just how they express their love.
They're like the ultimate like problematic couple.
Yes, they're just like, my love language is aggressive violence.
So yeah, so then we see Joker in this plot. So, because Joker's thing is like, I'm gonna make him say he hates me because that I want that validation. So he's doing everything for his own purposes. And yeah, so we see this back and forth. And you know, like we've mentioned already, it's a funny film. There's a lot of jokes and references packed into this hour 30, hour 40 film. And like, if you're a certain age, if you're a young kid watching this, I mean, some of them went over my head because I'm aware of like Adam West what was it, 60s Batman. But that's parody to me. That I only sort of recognize that as parody, as the was it Batman and Robin with Mr. Freeze?
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
now it's canonically the same Batman, which is the best part of this film.
Yes. So yeah, so it's so it's got all of that in there. It's got references to Michael Keaton's Batman, references to, we mentioned Christopher Nolan as well, some DCEU thing, but I did like the shark spray reference, which went over my head, but when I saw it and he says like shark spray, that's useless, I was like, that's coming back in this film somewhere.
Chekhov's
So
shark spray.
exactly, yeah, but basically that's exactly what it is. So yeah, no, I enjoyed all the references. I don't know if you got a lot of them or any in particular that really kind of connected with you.
I think like the one that hit me the best is the one that specifically when he's listing all the villains showing up and he's just like, and to top off the list, some British robots. Ask your nerd friends. And it's just the Daleks getting off the tube, like, which obviously,
Yeah, felt very represented with
yes,
that.
I felt seen, especially as the nerd friend who would have to explain to everyone else what they are. And it was like such a good little moment, but also just like the span of villains that they have, because they really went all out on just like, we're gonna have the weird people like Condiment King, who is like probably one of the funniest parts of classic Batman comics. Like,
Wait, was that real? That's a real villain?
Condiment King is a real villain. Condiment King is
Oh,
a
you're
villain
blowing
whose
my
entire
mind.
thing is he just wants to cover Batman in condiments. That is his motivation as a villain.
Oh wow, I assumed because there's a point in that roll call where I assumed they were just making
No, they're
people up.
all real.
And
As far as I remember, they are all real. And that is
Yeah,
one
I'm
of the
pretty
best
sure
parts of it. Because like DC Comics have some of the weirdest villains. But it's like, I mean, even Marvel, like there's a villain called Big Wheel who just has a big wheel and he wants to run things over with it. Like,
wow.
the extended canon of these universes is very weird. But yeah, Condiment King's real and stuff like that. Like, I love that they pull out all these weird ones where, like, if you know the comics, it is 10 times better as a joke, but they're just really
Right.
silly jokes anyway that work
Yeah.
regardless. I bet that you still thought Condiment King was great, even though you had no idea who
That's
that
funny.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just assumed the joke was there have been so many bad villains, we're going to make some up and you'll think like it fits, but okay. They are
They don't
actual.
even need to. That's the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, DC already got there. Man, okay. All right. Yeah, Tazziii, was there anything that, any reference that you thought was particularly cool or funny moment?
Yeah, when they're doing all the costumes at near the end for each of them,
Oh,
like Batman's little family, and then
yeah.
it's when it's like triangle, because this one's Batgirl, and
Mm.
then she's like, if I'm if I'm Batgirl,
Oh, yeah.
can I call you Batboy?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was funny. Barbara was a really good character
Yeah.
in this. I did like, speaking of costumes, that there was a bit earlier on when he was cycling through the different Bat costumes, and they got to Reggae Man or Reggae Bat. Which
Yeah,
then
Reggae
Robin
Man.
used. I love that whole sequence. That was so funny.
It's so good. Like, I think like it's what Michael Cera's Robin in that as well, which
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like is like a perfect casting because
yeah.
I mean that man is just like, I mean, very crazy. Really sells the like clingy little like man child. Like, I don't know how old
He's
Robin in this
perfect
is
for it.
supposed to be, but he definitely is just like somewhere between like man and child. And
Mm.
like, I like that they even call out like the weirdness of the fact that he's just wearing like underwear and nothing else. Like,
Oh yeah, because he's like, oh yeah, these are too tight to move. Let me just rip them off.
yeah, just tosses them off, and Batman's just like, I can only look at you in the eyes right now. Like, what is this? But it's also like, I feel like some of my favorite jokes in it, like, are the ones where what I always find fun with the Lego movies is watching them, and then you watch it again with the perspective of like, this is kids playing, because
Right.
obviously like there is some references to the fact that like this is actually still part of the Lego movie universe. Like even in the Lego movie 2, there's a bit where it's like, where's Batman been? Oh, he was off on a side adventure. Like, so it is like a canon thing that like this is still being played with, even if we don't see like the hands and the people.
Right, yeah.
I think one of my favorite jokes in that respect is the fact that Barbara Gordon went to Harvard for police, because that's such a thing of like a kid who's heard like, oh, Harvard's like the best like university
Just
in
the
the
best
country,
school,
right?
yeah.
So naturally, like you can go there for police as well. Like you can go there for anything. And also like, yes, she's police. She still has nunchucks because like police brutality, what's that? Like nunchucks are cool. That's what cool police have.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even kind of fully like clock onto that, but yeah, it's again, yeah, it's so well done, and because the humor, so you get a lot of humor packed in, but because of what they're parodying, and Batman is such a brooding character, so you see the dark broody character, but it's like perfectly because he's paired with that sort of lighthearted, quippy character in Robin, and that just works like for comedy. that just works. But then even again reinforcing the themes of the story, like later on when Joker comes back from the Phantom Zone and takes over the Batcave, he finds that, or Batman finds that Joker's like completely redecorated the island into like this carnival style theme park. So it's taking the dark and making it sort of light and fun. Again, contrast to the character. So I feel like it works on both levels. And I know I've seen, because as I was putting the notes together and just seeing some of the reviews and people's comments, I included one early on that I mentioned, but you've got this idea of like there's a lot of jokes and a lot of meta humor as well, because you've got different brands. Do you find they got that balance right? Because speaking of Thor: Love and Thunder, that was mentioned earlier, that was way off the deep end. But yeah, sometimes too much humor can hurt the story. But yeah, I feel like they got it just right.
I think it's like with this, a lot of the jokes are at that perfect like level of they haven't like they don't throw them in your face. Like a lot of them are kind of these throwaway gags and things that if you know, you know. Like at the beginning, the plane is called MacGuffin Airlines, and like obviously
Yeah,
if
that
you're a writer, you know what that means. That's great. That's such a good like
yeah, that was a really good
little
one.
joke. But I think there's so many things like that which add to it if you know, but if you don't know, like that joke is a one and done. Like they say that it's gone, you don't really waste any time on it. And then like I said as well, it does give this fun aspect that you can watch it again, with the aspect of like, because this is a Lego movie, like this kid playing with it must really like these particular ideas and these particular characters, and that's why they're showing up and stuff. So
Mm.
there's kind of, I think the meta in this kind of helps ground it in that universe and justify its presence a bit more, if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. Yeah, no, and I do like the way they've done it. With, like you say, if you don't necessarily know the full backstory, it's not impacting your enjoyment of the film. There's even one that I missed actually until I'm just going through the list of like different references, and there was one that made me remember that I forgot that Prince did a music video or even album for the Batman film. I really forgot that. That was wild. Yeah, Prince, talented guy.
I had no idea that was a thing. I'm gonna have to find that
Yeah,
after
yeah,
this now.
yeah. He did a whole. I think it's a whole album. At least did a video, but a whole album. And he like dressed as Joker. He did a, because obviously like Joker, purple. That's Prince's thing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go and back and
I need to
rewatch
see this
that.
now.
Yeah. So yeah, so we get a lot of jokes. But again, we get a lot of story, and throughout this whole run, it's Batman eventually learning the power of teamwork, and that's his need. That's what he needs to overcome. So once everything like goes crazy, and Joker brings back the multiverse villains, then Batman's put in that position. So that's the whole idea of like the hero's journey of the story. The tension and the stakes get higher and higher until the protagonist learns the lesson and then sort of does the thing. And then what's underneath everything for Batman is the loss of his parents. So like Tazziii said, is that he's stuck in that trauma of losing his parents, and not wanting to see more people that get close to him, and then he has to lose them, which is a very human thing. So he just continues to not learn the lesson. And what I really liked in this, maybe like one of my favorite things in this story in terms of how it was told is that he learns a bit, because to defeat, I think it was Sauron, he does have to work together with Barbara Alfred and Robin, and they defeat Sauron, and that's like a victory. You've kind of learned teamwork, you achieve something, but then he reverts, and it's an annoying thing to watch when you want a character to get somewhere, but it's a great kind of for engaging the audience, when done well, for engaging the audience and really getting them to have that down moment, because he just goes, even though this thing worked, I'm actually gonna, against your will, send you all away, and I'm gonna go back to the lone wolf or bat and take on Joker myself. Yeah, what did you think about like that moment in particular? Because that was a real, again, just he reverts back to type, back to that trauma, actually, like exactly like Tazziii you were saying.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good, I thought it was good for the story, but also, again, it goes back to this being a really, really well done, actual serious themes, in it, because I feel like a lot of people, if you're working through stuff and trying to overcome some kind of trauma, it's so easy. So when it starts to get good, that you kind of push back and revert back to how you was, because you want to go back to the familiar, because the unknown is way more scary than just sitting with the thing you already know, even if you know it's not great for you.
Not good for you, yeah.
And it was that's really deep. It's I know when I've done that, and it's really hard to fight against that, and I see other people do it.
It's very real.
Yeah, definitely.
It's I think people I don't think it would be as satisfying when he actually does come around without it. The fact that we see from the start that he is this man-child who is so self-sabotaging. I think it's you can't just give someone like that a family and have them flip overnight. He's had Alfred for years and he still doesn't actually let Alfred in on these things. So I think it kind of needed to happen. And then I think the way that they do it was also pretty good, cinematically. I love the visual of them just getting launched away in the scuttler, and him being go get them tacos to his robot.
No, it is really well done, because they do plant the seed. I mean, we know, by this point we know the Batman origin story, but they do in this film plant the seed of him and his parents, and looking at that photo, and then when they have that victory as a team, they take the selfie photo, and it's matching the photo of his parents, and that just instantly takes him back to that, and then he's no, I'm gonna avoid this potential pain and send them away. So everything's really well done in this film. So and I think the other aspect to this, I'm just thinking as Tazziii was speaking about the trauma aspect is, and again, we always find a way to get very deep with animated films. I don't know how this keeps happening, but I feel what's really good about this is if you're someone who's dealing with someone who has that trauma, you might, because on the surface he's a man-child, he's a bit of an idiot, and he's just doing this foolish thing, but it's often a trigger for the behavior, and obviously he's not going to say what it is, and I don't know, there's some kind of therapy device in there, because you might be someone, I don't know, he might be Alfred pre-parenting book and not quite understanding why this person is doing the thing they're doing, but there's a reason for it, and if you address the reason, then you can sort of address the behavior, and this is the therapy portion of the podcast. But anyway, just a thought that came to my mind. So so we see that setback, and then he has to really learn a lesson and really get to that, what's the dark night of the soul, as pun partly intended, but in storytelling, that's where you get to the worst moment, and then the character really has to properly learn it and internalize that. And when he gets to the Phantom Zone, he's told, actually, you might be a villain, you might be comfortable here. Yeah, sure, you can come in, take a seat. And that's when he's like, oh, I'm the bad guy. I thought I was a good guy, but my actions say I'm the bad guy. And then he changes. And again, I found it very satisfying ending because of that. Because the actual ending, like the mechanics of the ending is basically just, things blow up and they they literally just reconnect the city and it's all fine because it's Lego. But the underneath that, because he's learned, it all came together for me. But yeah, how about two of you? Did that ending land for you?
Yeah, like to me, like what made it properly land, honestly, is like the fact that everyone else forgives him. Because I think like I've seen a lot of films where like they have that darkest moment and then you have to go through like this whole redemption thing. And I think in this, it's one of those cases where the story very much allows him to be redeemed through his actions rather than having to have like this soppy scene where he like directly is making up to every person and proving that he'll be different, which I think like for such a punchy film would have kind of like slowed it down and made it drag a bit. Because that's not to say that he doesn't need to redeem himself to these people, but it's like I think it even helps show you why these are his people, that these people are so willing to like understand and recognize why he did what he did and just move on, rather than it being like a whole thing that drags. I think that made it a lot more satisfying to me, because I have seen like the films where they get so hung up on like justifying that redemption and justifying characters' acceptance of it that like you lose that kind of clever subtext of things and basically have the character be like, I'm someone who hurts people. I don't like having a family because I'm scared that I'll lose them. And it's like the film doesn't need to tell us that. We all know that. And I think it's pretty clear by the end that everyone else has worked that out about him too, and that's why they support him. So I think it works to me because the film respects our maturity, and especially as a kids film, it respects us enough to not have to say that out loud, but instead let us kind of infer that that's why everyone is okay with everything.
I think it's funny because the end kind of just like not rushes, but like the end's not the kicker point. It's the middle bit that is all good. It's like the real meat of this film.
Like the actual action wise, that is such an anticlimax.
Yeah, so like the middle bit's kind of like the meat of the film, and that's where all like the deep stuff is, which is kind of non-traditional because normally you have the good bit at the beginning, the good bit at the end. Not that the beginning and the end wasn't good, but you normally have like the most impactful bit at the beginning and the end. I don't feel like this done that. I feel like the middle bit is the most impactful, especially with superhero films. But and then it just kind of it all clicks together, and it kind of like literally does that. It even has the satisfying like click as they click it, and it's like, well, that's done. We done it. We saved everything, and it just like wraps it up like very that's the word. Not wraps it up quite instantly, not rushed, but it's instant. It's kind of like all that stuff, and then it's like instantly we're at the end. It's all clicked into place, and we've all saved Gotham together.
Yay.
With a nice little comedy bit, and then and then we punch out how we started the film with narrating the perfect way to end a film.
It's such a tight film. Like it all just, every component of it just like fits.
Yeah, it does all neatly fit together, almost like it was designed to. Actually, speaking of the Lego aspect, because I'm sure we would have discussed this when we did the Lego movie, but just thinking about the visuals of it, because it looks like Lego and it moves in that stop motion way, even though it's like mock stop motion, so it's animated. But interestingly, so I had this stat that the film took over 500 crew, a total of 9,153 days to complete, using a library of 3,180 different bricks. Just again, sometimes, particularly with animation, you don't always fully appreciate like the scale, the different pieces, literally pieces that need to be moved around to make the thing. This is like a lot of people doing a lot of work to make this 90-minute film come together, and it looked cool. It's Lego, so it's got that. It looks like someone playing with Lego, but I think they did a little bit extra with the animation on the faces compared with the Lego Movie. I don't know I don't know that for a fact, but it felt like there was a bit more animation being done on the faces for the expressions versus what we saw in the Lego Movie. But it looked good.
Yeah, it feels like I think the Lego Movie, they very much stick with the idea of like, we can only make things look like how they would look if a child is playing with them, whereas this
Yeah.
film's got a bit more of that like stylistic source of like, because they're not like, the idea of it being a kid's toy is a lot more subtle in this one. Like, I think they allow themselves a bit more like breadth, and like stuff like all the superhero things where they're like flying and stuff. Like in the Lego Movie, they'd have probably literally had like fishing wire on the figures as they're moving around and stuff. Whereas the way because the Justice League do show up in that at one point. Like the way they fly in that feels like someone's holding them. They don't really have that in this, because I think they lean into the action movie aesthetic a lot more, which is kind of cool to see. I like that they have changed the formula to fit the genre.
Yeah, it looked similar, as with some changes, but like you say, it fit this genre. Especially that opening was like, yeah, this feels like a Batman film.
Yeah,
and then the music was cool. It's a very well used music. Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror" as well. It had like a choir singing. Was it a choir? Pretty sure it was a choir, but they were singing Michael Jackson's "Man in the Mirror" just to reinforce the if you want to, what is it? And then, no, they quoted him first. It's like, if you
want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself in the mirror
and make a change. So they had that quote, and he was like, Michael Jackson, no, I said that. Batman. And then later on they had like the double check, but I think it's some kind of choir, some kind of group like singing it, so it's like reinforce that aspect, that thematic aspect. Just music was used well through this as well. For the characters, so apart from Will Arnett, I think that was the only expectation I had. And he does a great job. Were there any other either so well done or just surprising voice actors? And I'll give the one that surprised me. I did not know Mariah Carey was in this film until putting the notes together.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Maya McCaskill was voiced by Mariah Carey.
That's amazing. Like, what? I'm gonna have to like go back and watch that.
Yeah, me too. I had no idea. That was a complete surprise, and I didn't actually realize like Michael Cera was Robin. But yeah, again, he's perfect casting for that.
Yeah, that was like, to me, a perfect casting. But I think the one that like surprised me the most was the Joker, because like I feel like there's such a fight for like, everybody has like their favorite Joker. And I feel like I always like annoy people a little, because I'll quite like jokingly say that I really like the one in this. But honestly, I stand by it. Like, he is so funny. Like, just very kind of matter of fact about everything. Like, he just says everything. He's not like a scheming Joker who's like hiding his plan. He's just out there like, no, this is the plan. I'm gonna do this. It's gonna work. And I love it. He's so funny. I don't think I really knew who Zach Galifianakis was before this, but I love his Joker, and I think it's such a fun characterization of the Joker, especially when like around that times when we had like the mess of like Suicide Squad Joker.
Let's forget that. Or at least the first one. Tazziii, what do you think about the characters? Were there any that particularly like resonated with you?
I don't know about resonated with me, but I loved Alfred. But then I pretty much love Alfred in every Batman universe.
He was pretty great.
I don't really. I feel like all the characters are just like really fun in this, really fun portrayals of them.
Yeah, Alfred's also always like every time I see him, just a solidly played like
Mm.
character.
I feel like he's hard to get wrong, but I will always just think of the one of him in Gotham because I can just like hear him saying Master Bruce like so distinctly in my head.
Yeah. Because that was the Alfred that looked like, you know, he can get in the suit and
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
and
that
speak
is
down to
like
people.
hella badass.
Yeah.
Alfred, extra badass.
Yeah. No, it's a good range of characters, all sort of balanced and fit the themes. The themes being like, you know, sort of family, and we had Batman on one end of like, I don't need no one, and I'll do it by myself. And then like Joker, I was like, oh, I'll get everyone, but you know, some bad stuff's gonna happen afterwards. And then you have the sort of obstacle characters of Barbara, who's kind of like pushing Batman, sort of, or they're forcing him to reconsider because like we're gonna do this police thing without Batman, so or you work with us, so you know work that out. And then you had Robin, Dick Grayson, who was like, I need that connection, I need that family connection. So like challenging Batman on that side of like you have to care for this son you didn't realize you you didn't realize you adopted. So yeah, just again, just done really well. Just had that balance between the characters, reinforcing the themes, taking different perspectives through different characters. Yeah, it was really well done. Then we have like we can, as we always you know go to, is like the themes and like final thoughts. I feel in a good way, the themes here were very surface level. That like they were very clear, like what this film was about. But I like that. It just made it easier to take everything, all the like the silly comedy stuff that happens that could have distracted the film. It just added to those themes. So you have this idea of, you know, it takes a village. I think it might have been mentioned in the film literally, but that recurring theme of Batman wanting to work alone and having to be convinced of a better way. And then, like I said, you see the Joker, who's fine working with other people to achieve his nefarious goals. And like underneath that, this idea of trust. There was a moment when they were in, I can't remember what the vehicle was, but they were so they were flying, and then Barbara was like, "Oh, I can fly." And it's like, no, I'll use the rope. The rope is in charge while I go and deal with this other thing. It's like you just wouldn't trust other people. I would rather put this rope to fly this plane rather than give you the trust. It's just, yeah, just wow, hard-headed. And I say that somewhat self-awareness, but anyway, and then this idea of like family and relationships. So you see that like the found family, that's always a good like theme, this found family. And you got this like just father, this generational fatherhood, like Alfred, Bruce, and Dick, and then Barbara, who is like the voice of reason, and that's the found family. And to get to that point, Batman has to let people in. And there's a lot of good lines in this, but there's a really good line at the end where I think he says, like, at the very, very end, he says to Robin, "It's going to be okay, kid. Sometimes losing people is a part of life, but that doesn't mean you stop letting them in." And that's like the icing on the cake of him learning and internalizing the lesson and then wrapping everything up. So yeah, I thought the film did well in that sense. I assume Tazzy, you had seen this before.
Yeah, I have it on Blu-ray.
Okay, cool. So for both of you, because this is the first time I'd seen it, but for both of you, like having rewatched it, did anything theme wise stand out to you more? Or did you get any like different perspective, or did you just like reinforce what was already there from first watch?
I feel like for me, this has got like a pretty like specific and solid kind of themage.
Yeah.
That it's like it just reinforces. I don't think there's really, not that I can think of anything that like picked up more. It's got the messages that it's got, and that's it. But not in a bad way. In like it just is
No,
really
it's just
good
like tightly
at them.
packaged.
Yeah.
It delivers. Yeah,
And then
done.
I guess the only other thing is like not messaging, but it's just sort of like just bits of like animation or sort of Easter eggs that they're dropping that you notice more on a rewatch, or that you forget was in there, and then you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that in films as well. But yeah, what about yourself, Chochy?
Yeah, like I think I'm kind of in the same boat as Tazzy. Like I think a lot of it to me is just like it's so tight that I think it's hard to like eke out anything that I wouldn't say I've seen to some degree before, because it is just like so plainly there. But I think the one thing I would say is, like I said, whenever I try and watch it now, I try to watch it with the perspective of like, what is this saying about like a child playing with Lego, and like that perspective of like, if a child is playing out this story. And I think like I really do like the theme of like, kind of, even as like children, and like it's marketed to children, like the idea that like at any age, like you should be ready to let new people into your family and accept that your family isn't just like blood, it can be anyone. Like nobody that Batman accepts into his family is someone he's directly related to. And I think that's like such a important message of this sort of film, because like at the end of the day, like found family is so important to so many people. And I think like, especially for kids, that's a really like good message to have them start understanding and recognizing like your family can basically be anyone who cares about you.
Yeah, good lesson. And I know we've spoken about a lot of the different like moments and set pieces in this. Is there anything that we haven't mentioned that is worth bringing out? There's a lot that happens in this short, relatively short film.
There's one bit at the end that is really funny. It's right at the end, and the like Joker and the rest of the villains like walk off, and Barbara's like, "We're not just gonna let them like
Oh yeah,
run free," and Batman's like, says something like, "Oh, we can handle them. It's not like we can give them like a 5-minute head start or however long head start. Can't fight crime on an empty stomach."
I do love that bit, especially that's such a like, I feel like that's why they always escape in Batman things.
Yeah.
The scene that I've mentioned at the beginning is probably the one I'd go for. The microwave scene lives rent free in my mind, because it is the epitome of Batman on his own and what he's like.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that definitely works. All right, is really good. The book that Alfred was reading was Setting Limits on Your Out of Control Child, which just cracked me up when I saw that. That was funny. I'll end on this quote, because we've kind of touched on it, but I thought this was a nice quote from Max Goldberg from the Collider, and just talks about, like I said, not necessarily giving me new perspective on Batman, but I think that this film, and what Tazziii has said earlier, actually maybe rethink the live action version of Batman, and maybe how ridiculous that whole thing is. But the quote is, it does keep its focus on two things: how the dark and serious attitude given to Batman over the decades has morphed into something unintentionally comic, and that this attitude restricts the character's growth. If Batman is always required to be a dark and gritty vigilante, then it diminishes him into a two-dimensional figure, haunted by grief but prevented by his fan base from ever dealing with that grief. And I read that, and I was like, yeah, is that what Batman's come? Because the Batman in this film, you couldn't do this in live action, because it wouldn't be quote unquote Batman, because there's certain things the royal we expect from Batman. Is dark, it's gritty, it is that loner, but it's, I guess it is two-dimensional. Maybe because we've had a previous conversation with Victor Luca from Mega City Comics, and I think he made a similar point, and maybe I'm starting to come around to that. Maybe they do need a bit of change in the Batman to allow him to do more than just brood and be that vigilante, which is why I did like the Batman, because we did see that version of the character for a lot of the film, but it was on his way to like learning and becoming, without going too much spoil into that, but becoming like a beacon of hope versus just sitting in vengeance and trauma. So yeah, that quote just like to giving me different perspective on the live action character, again through a animated comedy version of the character. But there we are. So that is our discussion on the Lego Batman movie. There's lots of discussion about the film, We threw in some existential stuff, some therapy stuff in there. So there's lots to chew on in that discussion. So let us know what you think about this episode's story discussion. Before we completely wrap this episode, I want to make sure we get to this week's storytelling tip. Each time we do a deep dive on the podcast, I like to put out a storytelling tip for others to consider when making their stories. So this is a consideration from someone who also creates stories and likes to learn from the techniques or mistakes of others. So for today's episode, I wanted to discuss creating setbacks for your protagonist, which is something that I mentioned earlier on, and I felt just like really well done in this story. So it kind of goes to this idea of the redemption arc for character or protagonist. And in a good story, I feel well-made story needs conflict. Any story really needs some form of conflict, and a good source of conflict is the internal kind, which you kind of see here in this story, and that you often see in a redemption arc, particularly when we see the protagonist's setbacks on their journey to eventual redemption or self-discovery. So those setbacks that are like crucial stepping stones that allow the character to learn and grow, they're often not enough to resolve their central dilemma. So redemption arcs are inherently driven by failure. So setbacks serve a dual purpose. They humble the protagonist and also force them to confront the limitations of their existing worldview. And in a well-made narrative, the setbacks will occur in stages, with each failure revealing more of the lesson that the protagonist must learn before their final transformation, to make a Dragon Ball Z reference. Redemption arcs are also extremely difficult and can be easy to mess up. Kylo Ren, I'm looking at you. It's not just good to have a villain who is redeemed too easily, and that's why pacing and setbacks are key. So in the Lego Batman movie, it's done particularly effective, as a lot of things in this film is done. So we see that example of setbacks in Batman's journey, which really maps onto the hero's journey. So Batman embodies the classic flawed hero, and his journey follows the hero's journey and those key setback beats of the redemption arc. So we see the illusion of self-sufficiency. So Batman begins as an arrogant, isolated hero who believes he doesn't need anyone. We see the early setback. He initially succeeds in thwarting Joker's scheme, reinforcing the belief that he's better off alone. And that's the problem with like misplaced beliefs. Like sometimes there is validation that proves the belief, but then we see setbacks. So he makes some reckless decisions, putting Robin in on a mission without any training, which leads to problems. And then the darkest moment, so when he ends up imprisoned in the Phantom Zone and is forced to confront that he has alienated everyone who cared about him. So from there, we see like the moment of realization that leads to the redemption and the resolution. So eventually, by working together, he's able to save Gotham and reinforce the theme that collaboration makes him stronger. And if we talk about redemption arcs, we have to talk about Avatar: Last Airbender. Zuko's journey in Avatar follows a similar trajectory, but it's more gradual because it's a three series story, and it is the greatest redemption arc in any story. Don't try and think of a better one. There isn't. His setbacks are spaced across 3 seasons, and each one forcing him to confront his flawed ideology. So initially he believes like regaining his father's approval is the goal, but repeated failures force him to question this belief. And like Batman, his lowest moment, which is choosing to betray Uncle Iroh, leads to that deep introspection and ultimately redemption. So yeah, that was a big moment. But yeah, we see that this kind of like setbacks in other storytelling mediums. Classic Christmas Carol, Scrooge experiences little failures that leads to his ultimate redemption. A bit more recent, Bucky Barnes in The Winter Soldier. So we see this brainwashed assassin who eventually finds redemption as Captain America's and the Avengers ally. So yeah, it can be done well in different ways. So here are 4 tips to consider when implementing setbacks in your protagonist's redemption arc. So number 1 is tie your setback to the character's flaw. So each failure should challenge the protagonist's deepest misconceptions about themselves. And that's the problem with Kylo Ren. So in The Rise of the Skywalker, Kylo Ren just turns good because of like reasons. So it has to be stronger than that. Otherwise, the audience won't really care about the moment of redemption. Number 2, is pace the setbacks. So I mentioned Zuko. That's over 3 seasons. Here in Batman, it's a single film, but again, pacing kind of will work on different levels. So yeah, too many setbacks without progression will frustrate the audience, but then too few setbacks will lessen the impact of that redemption. And what's great about Batman is that his major setback actually comes after a bit of success in doing the right thing. So both he and Zuko make conscious decisions to avert because they've not fully internalized lessons, and it's linked to that trauma, back to the character flaw in point 1. So the character should learn in stages until they fully grasp the lesson needed for redemption. Number 3 is actions speak louder than words. So in a story and in real life, how many times have you've heard a friend, a partner, a family member announce that they changed without showing evidence of the change? Stories are the same. So that's why good redemption arcs, we usually see the character, if it's a villain or someone else, like go through those setbacks, and that's evidence of them trying, taking action before you get a payoff. And last, number 4, is you also have to create a forgivable character. So for the character to get their final triumph and have that be meaningful for the story and the audience, like we, the audience, have to care about them, or at least see them as worthy of redemption. So Bucky starts off as this ruthless assassin due to his programming, but because of his genuine connection and friendship to Steve Rogers, that gives the audience something to believe in, something like good to believe in. And because it's been a while since I've referenced God of War, let me mention Kratos, who in earlier games is just this, speaking of two-dimensional, in a good way, is good games, but he's just a vengeful warrior who finds redemption in a new game, or the new games, through fatherhood and a desire to break the cycle of violence that, to be fair, he started in the first games. So none of us have experienced being a demigod, but we can all understand and root for a man trying to reconcile with his past in order to be a better father in the present. So it's giving the audience something to hang on to. So getting a handle of that technique will hopefully help build stronger narratives that leave a lasting impression on audiences. So that is a tip for this week. If you're creating your own story, playing with redemption arcs, character setbacks, let us know what you think. Get in touch with us on our Discord, or you can send us an email, studio77@myamatter.com. So, Tazziii, let's check in with our guests and find out what they are up to.
I don't feel like it's been that long since the last time you referenced God of War.
It's been a while. It's been a while. It's been a little while.
I don't know. Maybe the listeners can. Chochy, do you want to let us know any projects that you want to highlight, or anything you're working on at the moment that you want to highlight?
So obviously, I do my regular streams and stuff. I stream weekly over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Chochy Plays. But then I'm also this year trying to do a lot more other stuff. Fundamentally, one of the reasons why I really enjoy talking about stuff like this is I'm a script writer at heart. That's what I went to uni for. So one of the things I'm trying this year that I'm trying to work out at the moment is I want to start. I've got some video essays that I'm working on. The first 2 that I'm working on at the moment are the Death of Couch co-op, because I don't know about you guys, I miss the days where I could just bring a Wii remote over to a friend's and play a game without having to get another computer out and hop on the internet with them. And also nostalgia, and why are old games so hard to go back to, because I recently picked up the original Pokemon Blue cartridge that I had as a kid, and considering I couldn't read at the time, why am I doing worse at finishing that game now than I did when I was 5? So that's most of the stuff I'm working on. Other than that, I am currently in the very early stages of writing and building a TTRPG called Age of the Outage. It's about a world quite like ours, where they didn't have any technology. It was a very magical world until a group have come in from another plane and introduced all that. Only about 30 years later, all technology has just stopped working entirely and plunged their society into a new kind of crisis. And so I've been doing I've been writing the story for that and also working out the systems. So I'm kind of doing a bit of everything at the moment.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll add some links into the show notes, but thank you so much.
No, thank you very much for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you guys about writing and stuff. It's fun.
No, thanks. Thanks for joining and appreciate the insight. It's always, good to learn from someone who's actually studied writing. So yeah, that's that's good. And thanks for the listeners. If you have reached this point in the podcast, that means you must have enjoyed what you were hearing, or you went to the other room and just come back and now the episode's ended. Either way, we are appreciative of you sticking around. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a future episode. You can go back and listen to the other deep dives that we've done over the years. Also, give us a 5-star rating and review where you're able to review the podcast. That helps us reach new listeners and fans of story discussions. We're also story creators ourselves. You can discover our manga universe online. We can see the titles, everything else we do as a brand, and also get the latest manga, Origins Against All Odds. Don't forget to join the Studio 77 Discord and chat with us there as well between episodes, and also get a heads up on my Amada projects and events and meet others in the community. We have the Do I Look Like a Gamer video game representation campaign, which is in progress for this year. We're working on the photos as we record. This is our yearly initiative for diversity and inclusion in the video games industry and culture. We've got a bunch of plans in store as per usual. So yeah, we're working on the photos, and then we'll have the launch coming up soon, where we'll be able to talk a bit more detail about this year's campaign and just that idea of diversity and representation in games. So check out looklikeagamer.com and just follow us on our socials. As for the podcast, we release new episodes on Thursdays that include video game discussions, interviews with creative practitioners, and deep dives into stories across pop culture. You can always give us a shout directly. Our email address is studio77@myamada.com, and our website with links to subscribe is myamada.com/storyxstory. So thank you for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe, and remember, whatever you do, don't let Lego or Kendrick Lamar write the diss track to your long-standing character Mythos. Take care, everyone.